transport languages, but it's good you've considered everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Kelvin Cheruyot Rotich. I serve as the chairman of South Rift branch in the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union, and I will be your moderator for this discussion. Feel most welcome. Thank you. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the National Secretary for Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union to make his welcome remarks. Karibu Katibu.
Good morning, everyone. Comrades, power. Comrades, power. Comrades, real. I think we have said a very, like we didn't sleep, but I think most of us must have slept well. So it is always very important when you're in the union forum like this to sing the anthem of solidarity. It's an international anthem. So I'll ask all of us to stand up, and then we start. So I'll be the, how do you call it, soloist. And then I'll bring the chorus, and you go. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what falls on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one. But the union makes us strong. Solidarity, solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union make us strong. Thank you. To our chief guest, Honorable Tom Odege, the MP for Nyatike, the General Secretary for UKCS, the titular and the president for African Public Sector Unions, to all our invitees today, that is General Secretary for KUKO, a representative from HENET, representative from Amnesty, the representative from the Future of Kenya Foundation, the representative from TISA, the members of NEC, and all the delegates present today. I want to welcome you this morning to the launch of VAMED Reports. This comes about from a research that was done by KMPDU in collaboration with CICTAR, that is Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research, together with PSI, that is Public Service International. The overriding theme in the discussion is just on the issue of accountability and transparency, and the question of where is the money in the healthcare in this country. This comes down to not a one-day project, it's not a one-day research. It's a research that began in 2022 and was completed in 2024. And therefore, there was a detailed follow-up that was done to see that, is it a problem of finance? Is it a problem of accountability? Is it a problem of transparency? And is it a problem that the government itself is making to ensure that things don't work? Is it our local problem in the country? Or are there strong hands from the global players who act like they are donating equipments to us, and yet they're extracting either from Austria or from Finland or from UK. And this was surrounding one engineering company called VAMED that has roots in Austria, in Finland, and in all these countries. So this project was also formed on the backdrop of the health financing in this country, where Kenya is part of the countries that in the year 2001, April, signed the Abuja Declaration that 15% of the budget of the healthcare, of the budget of the country should go to healthcare. But over the years, as we've been seeing for the last 23 years, this year's budget to healthcare is about 4.7%. But despite all this, we noted, represented by the research persons and by the team, that there is a disjoint between the Ministry of Health and the counties in terms of the equipment that are actually being pushed down to the counties. These same equipment that are pushed down to the counties, we come to learn that are being pushed down to our country from the countries in the global north, where they themselves are actually manufacturing them and are looking for market for them. And some of those equipment are not needed. But then sometimes it looks like grants, but we come to realize that we owe the big million dollar loans that we end up having, like in Finland for the 2023-2024. So it's at this background we're looking at it. Why is healthcare not functional despite this equipment? Is there involvement of the county government? Is there involvement of everybody that is involved in this to make this thing work? So that is the research that KMPDU, CICTAR, and PSI did strongly, so that we can bring it out that we need accountability so that actual funds can go to healthcare to make it function. And there was no better time to have this conversation because the country has been singing universal healthcare. It is a song that has been sung by the previous government and by this current government. And there's a continuous launch that we keep on seeing. On 19th of October 2023, the government launched universal healthcare for the fourth time. And we kept asking as a union or as doctors and as healthcare workers that most of the time when somebody goes to launch something, it is something that is ready to function. When you go to any place that they're launching a rocket, it's a rocket that is launched to go and fly to the space. You don't go launch and then you come back and ask the basics to start it off. Well, you have seen they launch the universal healthcare when you don't have functional hospitals, when you don't have the healthcare workers in those hospitals, when you don't have the drugs. Then it becomes a conversation on the streets or in every political rally. We have seen that, and it's still being done. So we have to be at a point that we can put the government to account and to make things work. That's why we're doing this project. We were looking at it that, is it time that we just keep quiet and say, no, we are going to have universal healthcare, or is it a dream? This also comes at a point when SHIFT, or Social Health Insurance Fund, is being fully launched, I think, by 30th of this month, despite the struggles and the cries that you've had. But one thing we say, as a union, we fought it together with other unions in court. And the reason why we're doing all that is one, that SHIFT will make healthcare inaccessible to many than ever before. Why am I saying this? The one thing is that healthcare can never be free. It's either you pay or government pays. But the moment the government has said that you're going to pay 2.75% of your income, and at the same time, they have said you are going to pay for any services that you can't, that they give in the hospitals. It means that you'll always just pay. Because you will go to a public facility and there's nothing working in that hospital, you'll be forced to go to the private hospital the next day. And then the payment maybe will be 95 or 9% of the cost of pay. And that's why insurance, whether social insurance or whatever it is, need to do its job. So we have to all come out and see to it that if they're promising us universal health care, is it going to a private individual's pockets? or is it real healthcare for all of us? That's why the theme of our talk today is need for accountability, need for transparency, need for the little money that Kenyans are paying as taxes to be used in a way that can make us access the care. That's why we will listen to Dr. Nabwire in this opening remarks. And also we listen to Jason, who is from CICTAR, so that in all the engagements, the panel discussions, at the end of the day, we see as a team, as civil servant workers, as Kenyans, what way can we make our government account for the little money that we have, so that the number one, corruption in healthcare, can actually go down. Thank you. And you're all welcome. Can you clap for yourself? Do introductions. Here. Yes, they'll be online.
Thank you. Thank you, Katibu, for that wonderful.
That was that.
Wonderful. Audience that is online, feel more. We have Dr. Martin Abide, soon to log in. Dr. Martin Abide is the National Treasurer of KMPDU. We also have Jason Ward, Principal Analyst, CICTAR. We also have Dr. Iftik Apech. So, I'd like to hear opening remarks. Sorry about that, the audience who've joined us online. So, as I was saying, we'll have opening remarks from Dr. Martin Abide, who is soon to log in and join us. We have Jason Ward, Principal Analyst, CICTAR, and Dr. Evelyn Akech, the Sub-Regional Secretary for English-Speaking Africa, PSI. So we can have the opening remarks from Jason Ward. Then we proceed to Dr. Evelyn Akech. So the online team.
Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I wish
hear you.
Excellent. I wish I could be there in person with you in Nairobi. My name is Jason Ward. I'm the principal analyst of CICTAR, the Center for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research. And as Davji was saying, we've been working with KMPDU now for 2 years. And this report is the first report in a series of reports that we're hoping to do with KMPDU and other unions in Kenya in the healthcare sector. CICTAR is a global organization that works with trade unions around the world to do research on multinational tax avoidance, as well as accountability of public money. This particular look at VAMED is just one example of a much broader problem in Kenya. I think everybody realizes that Kenya needs to spend more on public health. and particularly more money on frontline healthcare workers to improve access and healthcare for everyone in Kenya. But there's a problem when we have examples that are laid out clearly in this report that I think most people already understand are happening, but there's a concrete example here of money that is precious and limited resources for public health that is being potentially misused and abused and not improving access to healthcare and the quality of healthcare. And indeed, the conclusion that from our research and analysis is that, in fact, this type of program is there not to improve healthcare in Kenya, but to subsidize the exports of European manufacturers, and this is called development. And I think there must be much greater transparency and accountability from the Kenyan government in terms of how limited resources are spent, and to make sure that what is spent wisely and correctly in improving healthcare for everyone. I will keep my remarks to a minimum, and I think Alphonse is going to walk through the details of the report, but clearly what we need is greater transparency and accountability. It would be fantastic for the Kenyan government to take a closer look and review an audit of contracts, not just with VAMED, but across the sector, to understand how money is spent and how it could be spent better and more effectively. And I also want to say that we're very happy to do this work with the support of our union comrades, FNV in the Netherlands, who have helped to fund this work and are supporting this work. And we hope that you in Kenya can push and hold the government accountable. We understand that this type of debt is actually contributing to the current debt political crisis in Kenya, with no tangible results in terms of improving healthcare outcomes and access, and in fact, potentially making the problem of a lack of transparency and accountability even worse than it already is. And we will work with our union comrades in North America and Europe to continue to put pressure on these companies and the governments that are supporting these types of programs that are self-interested in serving European manufacturers rather than improving healthcare outcomes and public health access in Kenya. So I'll end my remarks there. Thank you very much for all coming together to learn about this report, and hopefully it will spark some interesting conversations and lead to some positive changes. Thank you very much.
Many thanks indeed, Mr. Jason Ward. We are happy to see you. Many thanks indeed. So next, I would like to welcome Dr. Evelyn Akesh, who's here present with us. Karibu, Dr. Evelyn. Dr. Evelyn is the Sub-Regional Secretary for English-Speaking Africa, PSI. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Good morning. Yeah, I just want to join the previous speaker. By name, I'm Dr. Evelyn Akesh. I work for Public Services International, which is a global trade union federation that represents public sector workers in more than 165 countries globally. Now, as PSI, we've always been at the forefront of championing the fight against privatization of public services. Now, since the advent of the structural adjustment programs, which was majorly pushed by issues of low demand and slow economic growth in many of the global countries, especially as led by both Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, that saw a number of countries in the global south being forced to privatize their public services and opening the space for the global north companies to access the market within the global south, which, you know, research over the number of years have actually shown that privatization of public services is actually a myth. Whereas the global north, just as indicated by Jason, is always trying to look for market opportunities for their companies within the global south and also tying it to the number of conditionalities, including IMF loans, World Bank loans, it never works in the interest of the people. So the launching of this report is clear indication among a number of failed privatization attempts, not only within the health sector, we've also had cases within electricity, within water itself across the nations, including our neighbors in Uganda, who recently decided to renationalize the electricity sector because of the failed PPPs. We want to also continue noting that the government of Kenya has got a responsibility to ensure that we stop the issues of profit shifting and also tax avoidance by many of these multinational corporations, which deny the country of Kenya the opportunity to provide not only quality public services, but also give decent wage to the public sector in this country, including both health, among others. And so, as you look at this report today, I want to applaud both CICTAR and also KMPDU for championing the issues of exposure in terms of, do PPPs really work for the country or they work for the few? Our question, which is most important as public sector workers, is that taxation is always used as a physical tool for the distribution of resources between the rich and the poor. And one of the major aims is provision of public services, including health, because a healthy population leads to a productive nation. So as the government of Kenya, we still want to urge the government of Kenya that let's put people first over profit and also over multinational corporations. Geopolitics that work against the nation and also work against the people is not a geopolitics that we should actually engage ourselves in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daktari.
Oh, stand there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evelyn Akech. Thank you very much, Dr. Evelyn Akech. So from the introductory remarks, I think everyone is called upon to act as Morara Kebaso. How many of you know Morara Kebaso? But now Morara Kebaso in the healthcare space. We are supposed to be asking what each and every shilling has done, both at the national level and the counties. We are supposed to know how much money has been allocated to healthcare in your county. Then we are supposed to ask that money that has been allocated to build a dispensary, to upgrade a health center to a sub-county hospital. Has it been well utilized? So I'll be looking forward to more of us telling us where that money has gone, like Morara Kebaso does, excellently so. So thank you very much to Dr. Dabji Bimji Atela, Dr. Jason Ward, and Dr. Evelyn Akech for the wonderful introductory remarks. I'm sure the debate we are going to have after the report has been tabled will be captivating. I'm looking forward to that discussion, that panel discussion that will come after presentation of report findings. So next, I would like to welcome Alphonse Were to present the report of findings of this study that was done. Karibu sana, Were.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Alphonse Were. I'll just take us through this report briefly. I hope we have been given a copy. Do you have a hard copy? But after this also, we'll have the soft copies on our emails. because I'm sure we are taking your emails as well. So we'll get the copy also on email. The main purpose of this report is not to be having another meeting like this, but is to stir the anger where we need to be angry, to start the action where we need to act, and to make us know that we cannot work alone. Yeah, we are individual institutions here, but for us to make progress, our unity is required. So when we started this meeting, we started by focus on solidarity when SG of KMPDU, Dr. David Jatela, was speaking. And I think that is the spirit that for us to make progress, we must be united, because there's a deliberate effort to ensure that we are put apart. I also want to say before I talk about the report is that the global capital thinks ahead on how to ensure that labor is disadvantaged. And therefore they come up with areas where they can make more money or can concentrate more resources away from the hands of the working class into the hands of the bourgeois or the capital itself. So as a result, it is high time we need to know that the only power we have is our collective power. So this specific moment is a moment to just say, can we reason together? Can we act together? Can we make progress together? My last statement I want to make is the issue of our Constitution of Kenya. Now, Article 41 talks about labor relations. And in that article, they don't talk about employees. They talk about workers. Because the change and the dynamics at the workplace, which we now call the world of work, is no longer even workplace, as we used to call it, is so much that we no longer want to engage people as employees traditionally as it used to be. So it's now upon the labor to know how to reinvent themselves with these changes, so that particularly in health, we are able to make progress. So in my view, it is that the capital today have focused in two sectors, and one of those sectors is health. And therefore, this is serious business. It will take you and the rest of the comrades, brothers and sisters, to ensure that we make progress. This work was done in Kenya here, and that was where the primary research was done in our facilities. And the primary work was also done through interviewing the healthcare workers in those facilities. So what is the overview of this presentation? I just want to take us through a brief executive summary of what it's all about, because I believe people love it when it's too brief, because you have the report, you'll read it, and you people are scholars. But also because some of you are people who want to say if it is a research, then it must be done properly. We have done citations, I think over 160, just to ensure that we are authentic enough, we are academic for those who want to use it for academic purposes, so that we are well quoted wherever we will be. And that's why we are thinking of methodology that we followed the right processes to ensure that we are where we are, including legal expectations and engaging even VAMED, who are the main case study here. And therefore, what are the key findings in this report? Who is this VAMED that we are focusing on? And finally, every good work of research should have some recommendations. So we'll also just highlight a few of those recommendations. And I think we can proceed. So we did interviews, as I said, and they were conducted at the county level in the facilities, because we were focusing on managed equipment that during the reign of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, we were having those equipment taken to the hospitals. And there was an outcry of the public, both the workers and the general public, on we have machines in hospitals that are either not being supported by workers who can operate them, or we didn't ask for them, but we are having them. Then VAMED also, when we were engaging them, they clearly said that this was not for profit, according to them. And we in that report, we have their feedback. And most of the information they told us is available, but publicly speaking, and if you look over it publicly, you'll find that some of it that was available, actually the links are now dead. So we had even to revise. The one you are having is reviewed as late as, I think, on Thursday. Because on Monday, there are things that you might have found, but maybe on Thursday, we find some things are not working. So we wanted to be as latest as possible. So most of the information is not publicly available, and the operations are not very clear. They're not transparent. So I think that is enough. We did detailed search of the information that was not able to be available. So we have a lot of sources, and that's why you say that we have done a lot of citations for the sake of authenticity of this report. Now, if we were to summarize this, the executive summary, the purpose was to uncover the role of multinational corporations, such as VAMED, in the healthcare sector in Kenya. Do they work to improve or to worsen the situation? Because the proposition is that the service being provided is getting better. We are supporting, we are helping, we are donating. But then, is that the reality on the ground? Or the reality is different? So that was the purpose of this research. And from what Jason Ward talked about, it is very clear that we now need to go in depth and get into it further so that we can unwrap it. Because where did this money go? Who actually paid for it? How much was it? And for what purpose? Then there's also urgent need for us now to start pushing for transparency and accountability, even as we push for the healthcare reform. The issue of opaqueness in the contracts of government in the healthcare sector is something we need to address. It is us who will address it. The civil society organizations, the trade unions, on behalf of the entire public. We must work hand in hand with the entire public. But for the trade unions, we must also be very clear that we are not just doing this as research, but the question is, are we having our members being disfranchised? Are we having members that we're supposed to have that are not our members because of this type of operations? And the main focus, and I think our sister, Dr. Evelyn, mentioned it, PSI focuses on, can we have this as a public good being provided by the public sector? But then you find that health is increasingly becoming a private engagement. So there is need for us to go ahead and now start organizing workers in the private equity. And therefore that needs to be our focus as trade unions, so that we don't have our colleagues who, when they go to the private sector, because of liberalization of the economy, then they get disadvantaged that they cannot even get social protection. So the case study reveals a major lack of transparency and accountability in how we spend in our healthcare today. And therefore, we recommend for urgent reforms. We are the ones in this room that will push for these reforms. And we must do it collectively, we must do it together, we must do it right away. What are some of the key findings? The issues of corruption, underfunding. Almost every significant thing in the healthcare sector is underfunded. And where we have a lot of money, you find that we can do with less budgeting there. When we need more resources, maybe, for example, for human resourcing, and you find that human resourcing is underfunded. So it is very important, therefore, to know that in these findings, one of the challenges of underfunding, corruption, and even privatization need to be addressed by us. But there is also a big role being played by the multinationals, particularly the managed equipment services, which is worsening the situation. Is it that we cannot manage this equipment publicly? Or what is wrong with our public management of this equipment? Is the correction to privatize? Or can we correct the anomaly in a different way and remain to have this service provided in the public sector, in the public way, for the public interest? So, even though we talk of devolution of healthcare, but 80% of the budget, we found out that the 80% of the budget of healthcare is still held at national level. But then, majority of the part of the healthcare, particularly human resource, is actually devolved. So this issue of budget is very critical for us as we do the accountability. And therefore, when you're thinking of the organization that I represent today, CICTAR, which Jason is the principal analyst, CICTAR is interested in those issues of accountability when it comes to taxation, when it comes to literally budgeting and funding. Now, VAMED is a subsidiary of a German conglomerate called Fresenius, which focuses on healthcare. But then they also have a model which we have explained and even given in the report. I think we have given their structure, how they operate, and the ownership of VAMED, because VAMED is owned by the government, especially owned by the government of Austria. So we have given the structure in that report as when you look at it. But the most interesting thing is that VAMED specifically is focusing on this equipment not to Europe, not to global north, but to the global south. And in that report, what we discovered is that in all the countries, not just Kenya, whether Philippines or Nigeria, or even Kenya here, there's nowhere where they went and there's a success story. And these equipment are not accepted in Europe. They're actually rejected. There are things that can no longer work there. And when they come here, most of the people that we conducted interviews with also said these things are not working in the facilities. So we have our own teams. And people, for example, in imaging or radiology are competent enough to even give feedback on what they need to make their work better or happen better. But if they're not consulted and you give them machines that don't help them to work, you will still go and say, these healthcare workers are not effective. When the truth of the matter is that they are not supported effectively. VAMED talked of it is soft loans for development financing. And if you look into it, the so-called soft loans is actually a sale of their product, and particularly rejected product in their own country in the global north. But as they bring them, they are also exempted from taxes. There's a lot of lack of transparency when it comes to financial transparency. But also they have a lot of benefits they gain by bringing these machines or equipment that no longer help us again here. So we are having a double tragedy. One, we are spending on something that does not help us, but the person also gets money without paying taxes. If you are the one running such a business here, you'll actually pay taxes. So we are losing twice. So we have highlighted the operations, the managed equipment scheme. We have also a services scheme, and then we have also looked into their tax exemption when they are having their project in Kenya here. Just a quick one. In our recommendations, I've just highlighted 4. The first one is we need to examine deeper on the government spending. Maybe if you can take people to the next slide, yes. So the first point is on the government spending. So we need to examine deeper on the government spending. That's number 1. You can maybe just show them the brief. Yes. Then the second thing is that we also need to increase transparency and accountability in healthcare spending. And if there's one thing we need to leave this room with today, is the issue of accountability and transparency, particularly on how we are spending in healthcare. Because healthcare professionals, workers, and stakeholders don't know what is happening in the sector. And therefore, even if people come and tell workers that we don't have money to pay you, but when they see the lump sum shows there's money. But then when you see the breakdown for workers, workers don't have money. You see workers who are trained, we have the shortage, and workers are still not employed. So if workers were engaged, their input will help a lot in ensuring that we have a fair budgeting process and healthcare will be fair. to the Kenyan population. So we need to increase accountability and transparency. But stakeholders, not just the workers, all stakeholders need to be engaged. That's what that report says. I'm just giving the highlights. I hope we are moving together. And lastly, we need to evaluate the focus. What is the role of private sector? Is it true that we become effective when we privatize? Because in the little language, if you can put it, is that privatization simply means profit making. So when you see the word private, it means profit. It means extractions. It means exploitation. And the only two things we can exploit, nature and labor. So when you see profit, that means there are people who are going to lose jobs, to be underpaid, to have poor working conditions, and there is nature that's going to be exploited beyond what it can sustain. So in general, a public good such as health need not to be in the hands of private sector. And particularly where you have no choice but even to fundraise so that you can get basic aspects of health. Yet Article 43 of our Constitution guarantees it as a basic right. I know we have Amnesty in the House, and they will talk about health as a right at some point. I want to stop there. I didn't want to make it so elaborate or beyond that point. I hope I have picked you have picked a point or two. Are we together? In my initial training, I was a teacher, so I need to see that somebody nodding, raising their hand, or some form of response. Are we together? Has it made any form of sense? Yeah, so what is the call? The call is that we have a part to play to make things work. And that part is that we must do it together, collectively. The starting point is that we must demand for accountability and transparency in how we spend. Thank you very much. We expect the reactions at some stage. So can I stop there and then we can pick the reactions at that stage? Or do you want to react now? Is that okay? Yes, you can ask questions, please.
Thank you very much. So were you able to find out how much the government of Kenya has traded with this particular company? Two, were you able to pinpoint like specific hospitals where this project is running? Thank you, because I'm saying that because the last managed equipment scheme we are aware of was the scandalous one of Uhuru Kenyatta. Yeah. So I'm wondering that is VAMED project part of it, or is another parallel one that has been there longer? Thank you.
Let me just respond quickly to that. One. Okay. You can bring the mic here.
Mine, as a follow-up, is that when we talk about this VAMED, I think as we do an expose is to point out, do we know how long it has been operating here? And I think I've seen you point out to a sister company, I don't know, Fresenius, as then are they one? The owners could be one. So I think it's good we get some good answer about those two companies and their extensiveness in terms of engaging the government. And we already know they are also dealing already with private sectors. Thank you.
Yeah, so allow me to respond. The VAMED projects of the projects of Uhuru Kenyatta that Dr. Dennis Miskela has asked are the ones for VAMED actually. So VAMED is the main player in all those managed equipment that were there during time of Uhuru Kenyatta as our president. And so that's the main focus of where we focus in this project. Yeah, so that's one. Two, the issue of how much was spent, we were not able to get the total because nobody, even at the county, nobody knows how much is being spent. So if you listen to Jason speak, one of the things is in the recommendations that now we need to delve deeper so that this is first part. And even in the report, you have made it clear that this is the first one among the several that is going to come on the way. So one of them definitely is we have now to get to know who is in charge of the budget, who signed what, how much are we talking about, which year, where. Yes, so that we can have that actual detail. The research is the one that will help us, and that research must be driven by us. If we leave it for somebody else who is pro capital or part of government that maybe want to conceal it, they may never show us that. And part of the people we have also brought on board here is PPRA. PPRA are in charge of how the government does procurement. So during the time when they will be giving us reactions, they can just also help us clarify on how procurement is usually been done, particularly when we talk of such projects, so that we're able also to get clarity. But we are very clear that we also need PPRA on board so that we are not running on our own. We are running with everybody and we're able to know where to be informed and where to know to identify the genuine gaps. Fresenius owns 77% of VAMED. So Fresenius is the parent company and has 77% stake in VAMED. Then the government of Austria through IMIB, this is on page, I think should be, if you have the reports, I think should be page 13, let me just confirm. Is that 13 or 14 there about, let me just confirm. Yeah, page 14, when you have the simplified VAMED corporate structure. I hope you can see it. Yes, so we have put the structure there just to show the relationship. Who is VAMED and how is it owned? Now, the arrow emanates from the owner and points to the one owned, or it points to the one being controlled, emanating from the one in control. And around VAMED, we have put percentages which should add up to 100%, so that we have three entities that own VAMED AG in Austria. That is B plus C. We have the Fresenius in Germany, which is the parent company. And then we have the government of Austria through IMIB. I hope that responds to that very well. Okay. Yeah, we have some 2 hands there. Yeah, so maybe as before they talk, maybe let's hear from Dr. Davji.
Clarify something that the VAMED engineering project, they were coming in different phases. There were those that were directly from the former government, but those institutions whereby they will just come to approach. They come, for example, in Nairobi Report and Services. If you look at this particular document, I think page it's indicated there, where they directly approach the county government and send a letter, ask them which equipment do they need to furnish the hospital that they're constructing, without explaining them the source of the funds. We come to realize that it will be again the government taking debts to fund the particular hospitals. Then we also looked into, for example, in Yomara, where they installed a maternity. It was like there was no knowledge of the county government in anything. They just got aside, constructed the maternity and gave the kids to the county. So you realize that at the end of the day, that particular facility, if the county does not do anything, it remains unoperational. And an evidence of that also been posted in, was posted in Twitter for request. We have a similar scenario in the Nandi County, where there is 100-bed hospital has been constructed. The county governments have no ability to operate the facility, but then that's been done. Then you come to learn that the national government is in connection with the outstate governments, so that it's a debt that is being used, but then to push the facility. That was the essence of all the political projects, with evidence and examples being given. So therefore, we come to realize that there's actual need to make this thing operationalized. And the whole, when you are calling this county government to get information, you realize that an hospital has been constructed, like in Marquette, Baringo, Queenie, where the county does not have anything to carry that. When you ask the Ministry of Health, they also don't give the information. Then you will connect, for example, the one for Nandi, an organization behind in Abu Dhabi claims they built it. VAMED also claims they built it. But the personalization of the plan on it is not good in place. They come to realize that all is debt. And the final presentation that did also, which is now this year, you can't say that this year when it's for the previous government, where Finnish government has funded VAMED about $19 million to do the VAMED project in Kenya. Again, this looks like a grant, but then we come to realize it's a debt that we have to pay. But whatever being constructed is done, so we cannot even put it to the previous government scale, but it overlaps.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lilian Momina. And basically what I wanted to ask on Dr. Davji has touched on it, because I wanted to maybe raise on the concerns about the stakeholders, the laborers, now the healthcare workers and the counties not operationalizing these projects. But maybe going forward, because I've had the procurement guys, the ones that procure things are here, maybe they should give us a clarity on how they intend to spend the money that they're getting for using the healthcare facilities. And maybe on the stakeholders, the laborers' engagement. What efforts because you said in your recommendation that one of the things that you came out was you wanted to involve more laborers, that is the healthcare workers, to protect them from being privatized. Yes, the number 4. So maybe you can give us like on how you're going to make sure that as the equipment and as the facilities are being upgraded or even constructed, these workers, because knowledge triggers action, these workers who are in those specific counties are actually aware that such things exist, and it is for their counties or from the national government to actually improve the healthcare or the facilities in the counties.
Maybe repeat that aspect of the last question on the workers.
No, the workers. How is it? What are the plans to make sure that the engagement for the workers? Because as Dr. Davji has said, you can have 2 institutions or 2 facilities that have been upgraded or even constructed by 2 different people from the national government or even the county governments. And you see what is the way forward when it comes to engaging those local stakeholders, the healthcare workers, the county government's management, to ensure that they are actually aware that these things are actually being brought to be used or utilized for the improved health outcomes of the counties or even the people of that communities or even the country in general.
Okay. Let's give Sister Akech, and then we go to Honorable Dege.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'll just speak from one of our submissions. The question is, who does the needs assessment? And who calls? Because if these buildings are being pushed to the county governments, did the county governments request for them, and what is the procurement processes within the health sector itself? Then number 2, it still goes back to what Comrade Miskela said. how much money are we paying back as Kenyans in terms of interest on the so-called soft loans? Because that gives us an indicator of how much money are we losing as a country in terms of tax exemption. Then finally, it will also be interesting because you put it operates as a branch in Kenya in quotes. Okay, if you look at their books of accounts, when they are consolidating the group's books of accounts, how do they declare the profits made from Kenya? Because that also gives an indicator in terms of, do they treat us as a branch or another venture, as they claim it is not for profit, but once it's declared as a profit, in terms of maximizing the shareholders' value through private equity, then that money should be taxed. So we need to find out, how do they declare profits made from Kenya in their books of accounts?
Okay, give it to Honorable Dege, and then I attempt to respond. Yes, I'm
my first concern will go to that. You indicated that there are a number of facilities being built. One in Nandi, another one was like now the contract they're talking about in Nairobi. Is there public participation about that? Because like, can you talk about health facility of 100 beds in Nandi and it's not being utilized, which means maybe the public were not aware, or it was not their priority or need. That might be a misplaced priority. Then as you are conducting your study on the research, have you come across an indication that most of these supplies are influenced by some element of corruption, someone, or a kickback?
Okay, let me attempt to respond. And I think the questions are actually merged, but also the responses are in the report. If we read the report, we'll get responses directly. So one of the issues is that in most of the occasions, that most here means over 9 out of 10, there's no public participation. There's no engagement of stakeholders, particularly workers or the public. And as we speak today, on 4th of September, there was a major news outlet that raised the issue of VAMED is being wound up, and because they are no longer making profits. But then VAMED has been engaged in malpractices, particularly getting government tenders, not just in Kenya, but Kenya included, getting government tenders through corrupt means. Yes. So that in Kenya, if you are declaring profits, the assumption is that there is actually a physical presence incorporated in Kenya, which is not there and is supposed to be there. Because if it was there, we wanted to know, how does it operate and who are the shareholders? Like in Nigeria, if you read the report, you'll find that when they were operating in Nigeria, they actually incorporated it locally, but it was given to the child to one of the former presidents. But then when they finished the operation and things were getting murky, the company also was wound up, was dissolved. So it no longer exists. So the truth is that there's a deeper malpractice that VAMED is engaged in. They have given us their response. In fact, their response, we have published it at the top. But their response in general denies everything. But also, one of the publications have made it clear that the Fresenius, who is the parent company to VAMED, is pursuing one of their former CEOs who served for over 20 years. And they have written internal memos to employees of VAMED, asking them to give out information. Nobody will be prosecuted or will suffer negatively for raising those concerns. But there are concerns that are supposed to help to see if that executive together with the team can actually be sued. So Fresenius is pursuing that line. So the report is fairly deeper at that level. But then at the other level, where we are asking how much has been spent, at this stage of the work, we don't have the figure. And therefore, that only calls for us to go to the next phase so that we do the research at that level and ask, now that we know this and this and this, what we need to know is the amount. How much are we talking about? What is the value? And that is not in this specific report, but it's the intention that we proceed and see how we can get there so that we talk with those figures and then hold people accountable with the amounts known that so-and-so is the one in charge, so-and-so is the one accountable. So this is the amount of money we are talking about from this period to this period. Now, the last issue about the question that were raised, I think is about since when. The issue is from 2014. VAMED themselves says they have been operating from 2010. Records that we had, some say 2014, others 2015. So the ones we have worked with in this report is from 2014, from what we were able to get and justify. I hope I've made that clear. If there's maybe another response, Dr. Davji, I heard you being mentioned. Do you have anything to say?
Just to say that on page 19 of the report, we indicated that when we met with the county health officials on the VAMED project, it was quite clear that almost 100%, there was no public participation, not only to the public, even the counties that these particular activities were involved, at the point that I think we went further verbatim to get some response that we were getting from some of the counties. The particular county was in then it was Gilmar, where the officer said they just remember being given the key and being told they get a facility. So whether it's operate or it doesn't operate, it's not the business of the ministry or the government, but then they're already given the project. Other places that they had built the maternity and even equipped it, there was no consultation how that was done. So in essence, the whole participation was not involved in this project. And that's why there's a clear gap.
Yeah, can I make a conclusion so that we proceed with the program? And we'll still engage because there's some session of engagement. Yeah, so this is how I want to conclude it, is that the gaps that we identify in this report will only be implemented by ourselves. And so there's no third party involved. Now, one of the things that the workers need to embrace is now the power of research to get information on their own so that nobody gives us this information, particularly when they have received it. Lastly, this project, as we have been told, has been mainly handled by 3 partners, PSI, who focuses on the public sector and is for the public good. So that anything that the government is providing, must it be privatized? So PSI will, they have the depth and knowledge they have will help us a lot in the process so that all of us who work in the public sector and who interact with the public service from the public sector, we now need to know how to engage. And that's the main value they bring. We need to work with workers. So KMPDU specifically was here as a union, and therefore all the unions will be needed to be on board so that we are able to pick every piece and we have one better and bigger piece so that we can roll this ball better. And lastly, CICTAR is just helping us the issue of research, but at some point we'll have to be on our own, have capacity to do the research. And I'm happy that our chief guest who is here is also a member of parliament where we make laws. And if we have good proposals, we are well represented so that we can easily know that from here, we are going to the legislative house and we have our house in order. So thank you very much for listening and for coming.
Thank you, Alphonse Were. Let us clap for him one more time for the wonderful presentation. Don't worry if you've not understood whatever has been presented. I would like us to proceed for a sweet cup of tea as we process whatever has been presented. Afterwards, we'll have a very scintillating discussion on what has been presented. But before that, I would like to welcome our brother, Dr. Miskela. Karibu sana, our brother. Yeah, so before we proceed for tea, I would like to request Dr. Ndonga to pray for the tea. Amen. Thank you. So enjoy the tea, and as you enjoy it, discuss among you. Develop good questions that you are going to ask the panelists that we are going to have here. Thank you. Anybody who's been left out? Thank you very well. Now that we know each other, I'm sure the discussion will be warm. Thank you, Katibu. My name is Dr. Kelvin Cheruyot Rotich. I serve as branch chair, South Rift, KMPDU, Comrades Power. So with those beautiful introductions, I would like to introduce our panelists for the discussion. And I will begin with Dr. George Kibore. George Kibore is an experienced clinical officer and General Secretary of Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Karibu sana Katibu. Please come forward and take your seats. Let us clap for him. And Dr. Kibore will be articulating issues touching on accountability with perspective of the healthcare worker. Next is Dr. Bill Muriuki, Secretary, Central Branch. He's an activist, a scholar with a master's in global development from the University of London. He has keen interest in political leadership and governance, and he'll be discussing the topic from the perspective of the healthcare worker as well. The third panelist will be Zaina Kombo. Let us clap for her. From Amnesty International, Kenya. She is an advocate of the High Court with a master's degree in law, governance, and democracy. Karibu sana. She's a campaign manager of equality and anti-discrimination. Yes, anti-discrimination pillar. Karibu sana. So number 4, we have Cyprian Nyamwamu Orina from Future of Kenya Foundation. He's the executive director. And he holds a master's in policy and public administration. And he has keen interest in policy management and knowledge management in Africa. Am I right?
You're right.
Yes, so he'll be discussing the topic from the perspective of the patient. Lastly, but not least, we have Angela Wangeshi. She present from the Institute of Social Accountability. Is she with us?
Yes,
Oh, all right. But I think the 4 panelists will be able to handle the topic quite well. So, karibuni sana, our panelists. I will now hand over the discussion to be moderated by one Dr. Iskela. Karibu sana, Katibu.
So thank you very much, Dr. Rotich, for stepping in for me when I was running late. Appreciate it. So we're going to have a discussion that should last probably around 30 to 40 minutes. We are pressed for time, but nonetheless, we still have the discussion. So most of you have been around and heard about the report. And for the first round, I want to do an introduction of the panel, self-introduction with where you work in and how you marry it with what we are doing here today, just for the first round. So I'll start with GS Comrade Gibore.
Thank you very much, first and foremost, and I appreciate also leadership.
Good morning once again.
Good morning.
I am Zaina Kombo, and I serve as the campaign manager at Amnesty International Kenya. I deal with matters of equality, anti-discrimination, and most generally, things to do with socioeconomic rights. So this report really gives us a lot of information that we can act upon in terms of our advocacy.
Can I speak without?
We need it for the Zoom.
So, good morning, everybody. As I've been earlier introduced, my name is Morioki. I'm a doctor. I'm a trade union leader
and also have a lot of interest in matters when it comes to global development, especially how they touch on working class struggle, the working class movement, the labor movement. And but Dr. Miskela has asked us to do what this report essentially touches on, something that is broader than just the health sector. But it's good to now put a keen eye on how it affects the healthcare sector. So I'll be very eager to discuss more as we come into this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miskela. And I just introduced myself that I head the Future of Kenya Foundation, which is a policy think tank. We are about 19 of us who are interested with various sectors. But I think what I need to say here, which is relevant to my introduction, is that I spent the whole of my youth, fighting for the Constitution of Kenya 2010. I was the CEO and executive director of NCEC, which was the national lobby and movement for demanding a new constitution in Kenya. When we promulgated the Constitution of Kenya 2010, we knew that we had delivered the country. Unfortunately, we handed over the implementation of the Constitution of Kenya to the people who were against the Constitution of Kenya. Most of you know that Uhuru and the Ruto, the Gachagwas, and all these people, these were the people who were in the red campaign saying that the Constitution should not be promulgated. So I needed to say that we cannot discuss health or public services without a philosophical and ideological understanding of what the Constitution of Kenya says about these rights. And I hope that that is what I'll bring into this conversation as we go. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that round of introduction. I want to ask Zaina, as you work in Amnesty International, when we talk about this health as a right, what does it mean to the people? And I'm sure that along the way, Kenyans try and listen to you, because many times we hear about rights to this, right to that. But then again, how do we then use our understanding of that as a right, demand for more from your end? Maybe you tell us how we could do that.
So just to remind us, one thing that seems to have been erased from our Kenyan minds, that human rights only exist because humans exist. So we cannot be speaking about rights when we forget who we are, that we are human beings, whether we are looking at the general population or whether you are looking at healthcare professionals. When we go to our constitution and read Article 43 about highest attainable standards of health, then you come back and compare the standards set for budget, for instance, for healthcare budget at 15%, and what we are allocating, that is like 4.7%. If you just look at those figures, are we even high, leave alone highest? We are nowhere near going high in terms of healthcare standards. We've commodified rights. We've made the public good to be a private good, something that you can trade off. What we have currently in Kenya is nothing close to Article 26 that speaks about right to life. We treat human life worse than we treat cows and goats and other animals. So we first of all need to come to that understanding and conscientize ourselves and our people that human life is bigger than politics, is bigger than money, profits, because then when we see each other as humans, that is when we'll start giving each other some dignity. how this government is treating us is against the social contract that, you know, we delegate the powers, we pay taxes, but the taxes are meant to serve us. Right now, and I'll speak a lot in regard to cancer patients. We have cancer patients who are suffering in this country because of such things, that machines are not working. And when they go to those private hospitals, they are told, you need to repeat this CT scan, but they cannot afford. So what do? They go back home to die. It is quite an unfortunate scenario that we are not looking at healthcare as a matter of life and death. And it's as if we are so used to death that human beings can just go home and die, and especially if you're poor. If I bring us to Nairobi, in the context of, for example, Mathare is surrounded more by police stations than healthcare facilities. And the places they run to, like the government facility they have to run to is it Mama Lucy? Where we all know the kind of services people get. So first of all, before we speak about rights, let's remember that these rights belong to human beings, and the rights are inherent. They're not given by government. They're God-given. So the moment you're born, you have this right. And yes, rights are accompanied by responsibility. And this responsibility comes to us when we talk about accountability, that we must hold this government and we must hold service providers to account. So it really breaks my heart to hear from this platform that the county governments do not even know the amounts that are being paid off for such contracts.
Thank you very much for that elaborate awakening around the issue around the Bill of Rights. Bill, no pun intended, Bill Muriuki, not Bill of Rights. Bill Muriuki, you've had the privilege of traveling and studying in the UK, more so after working with KMPDU and seeing the challenges. I know for the longest time, the UK has itself with the NHS system. Probably, would you draw a comparison of how that NHS system, where the government fully takes the responsibility on the right to health vis-a-vis the mongrel we have here, and how we can do better? Because we compare and then draw a conclusion around that.
So it's actually quite interesting if you think about universal health. If you go to a country like the UK, the government takes charge of the healthcare system primarily. So they have what Dr. Stella has called the NHS. And in Kenya, instead of taking advantage of moving in such a direction where the government takes charge, what we are seeing is the government taking advantage of that process. So, for example, the NHS, because you're the largest supplier of healthcare in the country, you can really negotiate price, medicine, equipment. So, instead of getting bad deals, you end up in a position of very good deals that even the private sector might struggle to match. When it comes to Kenya, the government seems to want to use the same idea, but then now instead of getting very good deals for the people, almost engage in a process of procurement that ties themselves to bad deals instead of using the economies of scale. So you can imagine walking to a company and saying, oh, you sell insulin. We will buy insulin at only this price because this is healthier for all of them. But in Kenya now you find that probably go in the opposite direction where a few people sign contracts that nobody else knows what the contracts were. Equipment is pushed onto you that nobody asked for. Sometimes even not accompanied with the people who can operate those equipment. So you end up in a situation where instead of the process of the government being the largest single negotiator, being an advantage to everyday people, it almost becomes a few people in government engaging in negotiations for their own advantage. And just as I conclude, if you think about universal healthcare coverage that she was just talking about, healthcare is the one right everybody should get. Nobody chooses to be sick. It's not like a car. It's not like a mobile phone, right?
So the government taking charge of people's healthcare is not something they can play around with, because the people who need that machine need it. They didn't sign up for it. It's not something they just want. And therefore, if you are to draw parallels with not even just the UK, even other countries that have similar models, what you'd see is the government of Kenya would start it from, and I hate to use this phrase now, but it was really a good phrase, from the bottom. And you start by asking, okay, what does this hospital need? What does this hospital require? And then the government coming up and using its muscle to be able to deliver for facilities, for workers, and for everyday Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for drawing a comparison. I know for the longest time, the UK has prided itself in the NHS. Of course, we know the challenges that right now, as the world moves towards the far right, they're almost scrapping it off. I hope that it won't go that way. When we talk about our Bill of Rights, Mr. Cyprian, I have to confess that growing up, when I was much younger, when he was fighting for the Katiba Mpya, I really looked up to him, and I still look up to you. So it's an absolute privilege to be here moderating this. But when you guys back then were pushing for this new constitution, when we have that progressive Bill of Rights, how then do we convert the words into something that benefits the people? When we talk about the highest attainable health, how do we translate that? Bearing in mind that we live in a country where people rarely think about healthcare until they fall sick. You know, as KMPDU, we have really struggled to draw parallels for Kenyans about how their economic situation is affected by healthcare, because a sick teacher won't go to work, a sick pupil won't go to work. But along the way, the politicians have managed to make us think more about that the roads are important when they only use the roads to carry their dead. So how do we, what do we have in mind, and how do we then redirect the citizen in pursuing that goal? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miskela. And how do we refocus the country? We refocus the country by informing the citizens of the Republic of Kenya that Kenya is not yet a country. We are a market. We are seated here believing that we are citizens of Kenya. We are not. I'm very happy that Honorable Dege is here. Kenyans are consumers in the market. They are not citizens in a nation or in a country. That is the deep ideological conversation that this room must have and this country must conduct. We need to sensitize Kenya to know that we are not yet an independent country. Every country on earth provides two things for it to qualify to be a country with citizens. Number one, it secures health care. And number two, it secures education for all. Because once human beings are alive and they are equipped with education and skills, then they can deal with the rest of the needs they have in life. So I completely agree with you that the country has been returned to where we were in 1920, where we were Ibiaco, the Imperial British East Africa Company. The deputy president of this country has said that we are a company and we have shareholders. And he is actually right, because in this country, if you do not have money, you die. You die, literally. So the way we should move forward is to go beyond what the doctors and the medical practitioners have done in this country. You've done a revolutionary mobilization over the last 10 years, because single-handedly, doctors and nurses and medical practitioners have actually taken up the burden of campaigning for the right to healthcare, which they should not be doing. It should be members of parliament who should be doing that. And unfortunately, we do not have members of parliament in Kenya except in law, because they are there and earning money. And I'm happy that Honorable Dega is here. These people don't represent Kenyans. They represent their party leaders and they represent the president. You ask them and they tell you, no, Ruto has said it. Now what can we do? So you ask yourself, how are you representing your people if you cannot guarantee the right to healthcare? So I'm suggesting in concluding that our focus of transforming Kenya from a market to a nation is on refocusing the country on parliamentarians, because these people have the obligation of representing, they have the obligation of oversighting the executive, which they are not doing. They have the obligation of doing laws, legislating, and making progressive policy, which they are not doing. They are the ones who have given the executive the power to privatize healthcare, to privatize education, to privatize water, to privatize, every single public service. So it is a moment in our history, and this is a great forum, because the issues that are in the research cannot be addressed until we have a parliament which understands what its work is. Out here, we will do all the demonstrations and we will do all the strikes and we will do everything. But if the executive knows that the watchmen have become, they are no longer watchdogs, but they are actually lap dogs, which is the curse of the country, that's where the problem is, Dr. Misikela. That members of parliament who are supposed to be watchdogs have become lap dogs of the executive. That is where the fundamental problem is. And that is where we should start the discussion of how do we transform Kenya from being a market to become, a nation, where to be alive and a citizen is to access the basics of being alive. So that is my, I am suggesting that we pitch it at an ideological and philosophical level, not at a programmatic level. It has to be ideological and philosophical. Who are we? Are we citizens? What is it? What's the meaning of being a citizen of Kenya? That is the question we must ask.
Yeah. I get your frustrations, and that's something that personally I've really struggled with. That we have a population that will rather get worked up when Adani is taking JKIA, but we had a 56-day strike. The CEOs had almost 100-day strike. People were dying, and not a single day did I ever see Kenyans getting worked up around that. You have hospitals lacking drugs, being shut down, people dying. We don't get people worked up now. Instead, in those funerals where mothers die from lack of blood, the same place where the same governor who failed that mother would come and politic in. So I want you guys to think about, just as we'll be later concluding, how we can redirect the citizen agitation and madness around healthcare, because we could even see around during the time for the Gen Z movement that yes, there's an issue around the interns posting blah blah blah, but still no conversation around healthcare. We're not talking about reducing MCAs and governors. Don't hear people talk about healthcare as an agenda, will and redevolve it and devolve blah blah blah. The conversation that we have to start thinking about how to make the people agitate more around that. But George, when we talk about UHC and its pillars, the issues around financing, we have talked enough around the Abuja Declaration. We talk about pharma and infrastructure. That's what we hear in VAMED coming to do. Somebody tells that we brought a machine, a CT scan, 64 slices, blah, blah, blah. CT scan. We talk about human resources, we know the challenges that we have around human resources and the IT around that. It means that as the healthcare workers, and you represent them, we are just part of the cog. But lately you have been forced to become the same agitator, like an example, like a recipe being the chef, we can use that. What do you think is the role of the healthcare workers in agitating for healthcare as a right, beyond agitating for just the welfare of their members? Because for sure, the investment can be put in healthcare if we ask for it, but will we okay if we didn't just maybe benefit us as our workers? What do you think the role of the union, the healthcare workers, in helping the citizens to achieve that right? Thank you. Unfortunately, even working normal system is not an option. It is a projection between the national facility. It's not what goes to the county, because everything under the county is not discussed in either manner. The majority of the healthcare workers under the county do not even know what is the budget. When we talk about VAMED is actually a terminology that might not even be understood. So far, as the healthcare workers, as we talk about looking for the right, how many of us know that this is our right? Because your right becomes your right when you understand it. So I think, as you have mentioned it very clear, we have a role to play. When we talk about a very unstable funding system, and the current government talking about facility with the scope of debt. The realization of UHC is a kind of confusion. And they know that whenever you come up with this terminology, tell people that this is what is there. With history, we know that the highest we have got is 24% of Kenyans only who have ever managed to be enrolled in a form of a medical insurance. So if that's all of the things that we have done, we have seen close to 19 to 24 again who normally spend from their pocket. And that means we have to fundraise to get people to the services. If we were to do a survey inside here, a number of us will be in a WhatsApp group where we are contributing. We can propose one another day. You do not, there is nothing called actually funding now NHS, but they have allocated resources. Every citizen gets services free, you appear with your national identity card, and you get the services. They do not have this framed way of doing things that you have to be involved. We are from NHF, we are told we use 10 billion, is it 10 million? 10 billion to do administrative work to transition you from NHF to another insurance. And yet you have only allocated 4 billion for primary health care, which is your main reason why you are shifting from NHF to shift. So there's a kind of scripted way of how people want to do things, and as we talk about the corruption in the funding system, the tendering process, which is the most enticing thing for all the politicians and the administrators in our country. That today, if we appoint Dr. Skella to be the minister, the CS, the next day the PS, the next day they are visited by the people who are entrepreneurs, and they forget about the real role that they are supposed to be doing, which they have been obligated under the Constitution and under the health. To that extent, we now see a very hidden way of privatization of the health sector.
when now the big fish, and when I talk about we live in a patriarchal society, meaning the have it and the have not, where the have it are the people who make decisions about our life, and they will tell you you are well even when you are not well, and you start believing about it. They're the people who want to take away everything in manner that even healthcare is totally privatized. Now, in short, what they are saying, and they know that we have a big problem in the public sector, that we do not have enough staff, we have not funded, and if you look from even NHF, the way we have been funding the census, that at the second section costs 116,000 that's a natural referral hospital as such of KNH. But when you go to a private facility in Nairobi hospital, it costs 260,000. So meaning the private sector is empowered. A majority of what we call primary health facilities, level 2 and level 3, none of them. But you find a kiosk, a very small thing, it's just one room indicated. It has NHS, and it does several procedures and derivated by NHS. So this is the kind of corruption that the private sector has been empowered, and now we are saying there will be no choice of facility to get service. They know that already people do not trust, 60% of Kenyans do not trust the public sector. They trust the private sector. So at the end of the day, they will come with the chain of facility private sector for them to benefit from this thing called SHA. And that is what we are calling privatization of. I think everything we see into law, and I am told that the best thieves steal through policy. So they give us a policy, before you understand what is happening, they make themselves rich. When they came up with this permit and they have been told about the senior, they have active engagement with the government without being told how much is being spent. What we call now, our participation as the healthcare providers has been limited to the extent that even we do not know what happened. You're being told we have done this, we have done this. So you have to move with them. I think as we talk about that, and we asking that we have a honorable here, what we call public participation has not been legislated to the extent that we do not know what is the threshold for public participation. We will ask that is even when we are doing these things that we must do, because they do it, and if you they will tell your people, we are so we are not refusing, we are only saying we need a process that is transparent to make good use of the public resources, the little that we have, because one of the finding of the report is underfunding, shielded by untamed corruption. So with the little money we get, with the corruption, when it has nothing, we lose people lose life because there is no money that reaches to offer them services. That is why we cry of understaffing and everything. So our participation as leaders, I think we have been doing it a lot. Until now, we have been rebel, like we are anti-government. Whenever we do it, like when we say employee, like Nairobi employee the other day, then who can the credit? Who can the credit when I say employee and employee? If I tell you, please, we do not have enough equipment and you do it, you can the credit. So we are collaborators of the government. We are not anti-government, but we must speak when it is wrong, because indeed corruption is killing our country, is killing everything.
Thank you very much, my panel. I know many a times when we talk about healthcare, we might be tempted just to think that it's about talking points, that we just here for the sake of it. But think about that woman who woke up this morning. Maybe she's a mama for somewhere in Kilimani, and she woke up with a baby running fever.
They're just one major illness away from poverty. My think it's alive. See your policy for your loved one. You have to clean up all the savings. Admit that there is that one look because make ourselves that insurance cover. But because of that insurance cover, I just want to I just to close the road for the loans for the baby. Right? So a big push around the privatization of that. I think it's all about corruption. Yeah, and corruption. You don't have it clear, even the report is about corruption. And so I want to just open up this briefly for the whole room to comment around the whole discussion. Then I'll be coming back to the panel and we conclude. And the person I'm going to give the microphone is the deputy of KMPDU. Just tell us about what we've done at KMPDU in getting the awareness from the matters around healthcare and the right issues our clarion call for KMPDU. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Minister. If you look at it in there is no without in the environment will absolutely time. They will say, yes, this thing was constructed, but it was not. So they have to be and it's open. Is able to actually come. You need a possibility that the questions who come to the office actually get right. So this point that as done say many times it came to you. We don't strike for money. We strike for public health. And we have said it before when we asked for our first strike in 2011 was called Leader Act 1. The one in 2013 was Leader Act 2. So you don't Leader Act for yourself. Public health. And the major running for that time was how functional public health, where we wanted equipment to be functional, we wanted the drugs in the hospitals, we wanted doctors and health workers to be employed. That was the essence of that strike, which resulted into a significant report that actually outlined what should have been done by each and every county across the entire country. We then had the strike of 2017 on collective bargaining agreement. One rally call, you must say, as part of the government and the bloggers were coming out to say that the doctors were greedy. That was not the case. The real issue was the doctors were tired of providing care in the hospital. Yes, so you know, if you want an environment where it's important to stay, that's the reason why
only you're seeing the far-right movement globally pushing around the reputation of social functions. So much so that in the US, around Obamacare, made Trump some of the comrades, especially at the beginning. In our one of the almost 60% of the population against the health facility. And structurally made the public sector collapse. Then that collapsed the public schools, we need to go to those academies. That collapsed the security system, we have to hire. They start to know that to be more than providing those products. Well, there's no public transport in Kenya so that you can buy a car to move. And healthcare is the relationship around collapsing the public sector with drive privatization. As a global body, if you pushing for public sector, what or how can we then combat bring the focus both in the global north, global south, to ensure that we push back towards these people who are still on board? Thank you.
Is that the liberal policies were only entrenched to follow the global north power to continue their colonialism of the sub-Saharan Africa and also the developing countries. And I want to agree with you, if you want to conquer them, demonize them. Once you demonize them, divert them. Once you divert them, overpower them, collect their resources, build them. That is the philosophy of the private sector. Have a lot of advertisements to show that the public system is not working. Have cartels within the government to say that the state operations are not working. Then come and take their taxes, including the soft loans they get from either IFC, which is one of the arms of World Bank, that sponsors people like VAMED to come and invest in Kenya. And use the government of Kenya as a collateral, using the taxpayers' money. And that is the entire narrative. I want to agree with the comrade from this organization, Future of Kenya Foundation. It goes back to issues of ideology. It goes back to the issues of philosophy. Kenya is a marketplace. It is not. And let's go back to the paradigm of structural adjustment program. Provide markets for the industrialized nations so that you do not have chaos back at home. Because if the market is diminishing within your own country, create marketplaces outside your nation. And that is something they've actually done so well by pushing the narrative of privatization of public sector. What can we do both global north and global south? We know that workers, whether in the US or UK, have the same challenge as the workers in China. The privateers or the rich guys don't care about the common man. It doesn't matter whether you're American or UK or Kenya. All they care about is increasing the wealth. The courage to know that it is only 1% of global population controlling the wealth of over 99% of the total population. So what can we do? We need to also increase the workers in the global north, just like you talk about the US, and also have solidarity with the members from Kenya healthcare sector, but also the public itself. We came out some of these companies that not only use the public money from Kenya, but also for businesses from the global north. Then they're doing Africa favor. They don't do us a favor, they only extract our economy.
will open up. But before that, sometimes we get somebody from Hemet, right? As the healthcare NGOs network, yeah. What have you been able to achieve? What is the biggest struggle in advocacy around healthcare? That's your thought. Around CICTAR and PSI, and around VAMED is happening. That is and service by being confined themselves to issues related to that negotiating salary and allowance only. But today we are in a function whereby we can see the union has opened the door, whereby Kenyans can be told clearly that what you are looking for in the facilities are not adequate for you. Can we change the perspective on how we are doing things so that we get a better service for yourself? This report we are launching here today, I want just appeal to you that let us not limit this report to unions. Let us develop an avenue where this report can reach all sectors of business, and especially targeting the people who are looking for services in our health facilities. Because what is coming out here, the exploitation we are seeing here, is not only for those who are working in the health facility, but it's a cancer ailing the whole health system in our country. Because if almost over 80% of our resources are misplaced, even to areas of no priority, our people, I think this is a matter which as a country today, as we are launching this report, to be a wake-up call, and I hope the Minister of Health is listening today. We cannot afford to be harming our people in health when everything we are doing for them in health is for people to make profit. That one is not for the benefit of our country, and all of us must unite by it. And corruption has become a system in our country today. Because if you look at this report here, it's purely corruption. Today, when you look at the presentation coming from the blog, I was trying to digest these 6 things. Those who have known me in the labor movement and the government, I was against these things from the word go. Dr. Taylor, when we last met down there, I told you about this man from there. And his penetration in health. Last week, those who listened to the Senate, it came out there. And now, everybody in Kenya, especially those people working in health, must be aware a shift thing was purely developed by the other group. Through this guy called JS. Through this hospital called Nairobi West. So what you are saying here is true. King is not here to develop anything for Kenya. It's a business developed by some people to make money. And if this money being made to the benefit of people of Kenya, zero. The money collected is cheap. They are blocked from the public sector. And it will have made to benefit private. And the Nairobi West also we're talking about has spread its wings all over the country with medicine to tap this money. This is purely money made for a group. Today, if you are listening to breaking news there, our CS Brennan has confirmed the Adani group is developing our the Kentucky line. And they are projected, they are finishing by, I think, 2027. Which means every sector with money in this country has been captured. And to make it worse, if you can capture health, where our people, our poor people, are targeted to go and benefit from, then we have a country. A big country. It's a dying country. Because like one of the doctors made it here very clear. If you have a sick child in Kibra, we are talking. And the mother is split between going to the market to get food for the children and taking the child to those stores. And she knows very well when she goes to those stores, she spends the whole day there. She'll go and look for food for the children and come and buy her child. That's the situation we have found ourselves. In fact, if the government is listening to me today, Kenyans need to be told what was wrong with NHIS. What were we changing from NHIS? Why were we changing NHIS to a body we don't know where it's taking us? If we are not told, like now, we are contributing almost double what we're giving NHIS. And NHIS was having. Today, with this double, what type of profit are we getting as Kenyans today? It's zero. Completely zero. So those people who stand somewhere and agree to change NHIS to save, calculated their loot, and that loot is trickling down to Kenyan government, not to the people, but the people who are leading this government. And I think it's high time Kenyans need to demand from the head of state itself to tell us where he's taking our help in this country. Because if we don't demand for that today, I can assure you all those counties with the dispensaries down there, without dispensaries, no service. I'm a member of parliament, and my constituency as I'm standing here today, I can tell you a CS cannot be performed with any facility in my constituency, because there are no facilities. So if a constituency cannot have any facility which can conduct CS, I think you are aware of what I'm talking about. Yes, now I think everybody's aware. If our constituency with over 100,000 voters are lacking such a facility in our Dr. Museum in confirm, we don't have in the whole constituency. And today you are telling my people to contribute 2.75% of their income to a facility which they don't benefit from. What are you telling my people? They contribute money for some people to give. So today, as we are launching this document here, I want us, the union leaders who are here, let us move out of our comfort zone and reach to all workers in this country. And same time, then after the workers, we move one step and say that Kenyans themselves, and let them be aware that the money they are contributing in this country, whether it's fee, whether it's tax, is not benefiting them. So that if we come out and say we are demanding for accountability and transparency, the money is allocated, every Kenyan will be aware of what we are talking about. Today, if you rise up and say we need accountability, people will say, oh, you don't want to go to Ruto, oh, you are or you are ABC. Because people are not aware they are being released within daylight. When I was listening to panelists talking, because I'm a serious politician, I cannot start politics. Simply, you're very right. But the biggest question or the lion in the room, or the elephant in the room, is the people of Kenya. They look at the members of parliament when we are there. Ask yourself before you elect somebody to parliament, what do you know about him? What is that? Majority of people we have in parliament currently are people who are either businessmen, people with money, conmen, and seriously from the worst was true. So if you expect such a person to come and represent you and defend your interests, you're dreaming. Those professionals who have grown in the service like yourself are running away from politics. Then when you run away from politics and you go down there and elect somebody with money, you elect somebody with, say, with a businessman. If you elect a businessman in parliament, you expect him to lead it. No. If you expect a corrupt person, you elect a corrupt person to parliament, you expect him to drop corruption. The answer is no. If you elect a corrupt government, you expect that government to be accountable. The answer is no. So don't expect a miracle after election. Who can the person you have elected? If it's falling through, expect that government there. If you elect a person who is not responsible, don't expect your vote to make him to be responsible. So before you conduct elections and you break parliament, ask yourself, who have you elected? That's what you ask yourself first. If you elect a thief, expect a parliament. If you elect a rich man, expect a person who is going to look for more money. Somebody with appetite for money will not drop his appetite. I buy you today, you are 20, I have to recover my money fast. By the time I'm recovering my money, am I serving you? No. The answer is no. When you are ready to elect a businessman, I'll go there and do business with your money. Don't expect me to drop my money. Come and start do for servants here. Do for people who have worked the service, people you know their background, represent it and you get the service you want. But don't elect a corrupt person, then you sit down there and start blaming people that parliament is corrupt. You are the one who is corrupt because you have given us a corrupt person in parliament. Don't know me, my career is in the service. Go back to my constituency. Who is here? In what we are doing, we are accountable to every resource given us. We allow people to participate and decide what they want using their money. Just because we were elected with our background in the public service. We know what a public servant wants. We know what public service is. But if you bring a person with the background which you don't know, expect what you don't know what I. When I let me come back to it now on training matter. I want day for people, our people who are working in health, and especially those who are in health. Whether you have 10 unions, one and work together. Your interest, one. And that interest can only be served if you have accepted to work as a team. Where you see a doctor, you see a nurse, you see a lab, you see public health, you see nutrition, you see everybody working together, deliver. But if you pull differently, you will move 100 steps and go back 100 steps. Because your own people will be pulling you behind. I worked in a district for 30 years. And I understand what health is very well. And the politics of health I know very well. We can put our interests aside and put the interest of health ahead of everybody. And we team up together and deliver our people. Today, if we say as health workers in this country, united, we are demanding for 1, 2, 3. And we say we are coming down and put down our roots until 1, 2, 3 is done. It will be done in a day. But because when Atela is calling that, that is a square. When clinical officers are calling that, Atela is square. When public health is doing everything, others are square. The government will have its way and the health will never move. So if you want to make one move and it will be one forever, we have to do it united, and we have to do it all of us united and together. But if we are divided, we will never reach there. Am I talking someone? So on the issues of corruption when it comes to resources allocated in health, we have to be very categorical. Like now you look at the health budget, the country, you will still get more money in Africa house than what has been involved. So you wonder, what is this money doing in Nairobi here when the services are needed down there? This money in Nairobi here because this is the money we are seeing here. That's why those equipment we are talking about yesterday cannot be declared openly because those who are saying that are also getting their lose out of it. It's one. So anywhere we need to do a lot is seriously health and affairs here. All those doctors outside here can see that. Let them follow the money at the county there. They go and work down there. We release that money down there and the human resource, they go down there and work down there. Than accumulating a huge number of doctors in Nairobi with money, which don't benefit any Kenya. But people are still working out when doctors on strike, that means you can record. I said it before Parliament there, that that lady Nakumicha, I said there was a wrong person in health and it was neither for us to go. I said it before they left. And everybody kept saying like it was a wrong person. What I want to say about appointment of ministers, let the government appoint ministers depending on your qualification and your background, not your tribe, not your political affiliation. Because like now, I don't know what current health minister is doing, but must that health minister be away from Mukutuna? Just because the other one was from that area. You can still appoint a Mukutu who is foreign affairs minister but qualified to be foreign affairs, and allow a coastal who is good in health, still health. Don't just tell us if you replace a doctor must come from. No. We don't want jokes when we are talking about things like health. Those are serious areas where we need serious people. I'm not judging the current minister, but I'm pointing out he was appointed. You don't just say, if that Atela was the PSL, and now Atela is there, you do from him today. How about if you make such a proposal in that village? So you have to bring anybody else. Hata kama hana experience, just because a general coming from that village, you come and join us here. No. These serious people to stabilize the economy and stabilize services in this country. Otherwise, my work today was very simple, is to launch a report which we are going to use to educate Kenya. And in this launch, I would request tell us the leadership, can you join me with your copy so that we do the official launch here today?
Well done, well done.
Okay. On behalf of the health workers of this country, and especially on behalf of the Doctors Union, and the technical staff standing with me here, may I today declare this report officially launched, and we hand it over officially to the people of Kenya as a working document. Thank you very much. This and our report, we are handing over officially to the people of Kenya, and we are promising that as health workers and workers of this country, we will make sure this report is carried to each and every door of a Kenyan who is seeking health in this country of Kenya. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa, for that wonderful speech. Quite an insightful discussion on why Kenyans must be concerned about their healthcare. You all know that childhood education is big first, but a dead child is dead forever. So when it comes to issues around healthcare, there's no textbook. And you'll be told the politics around that. I'm glad that our partners from the process state have captured that quite well. My request is that let's see some of these insights to bring the conscience of our people to ensure that they elect the right leadership. So with that, I have to call the GM to read the press statement around the report. Then after that, we'll continue with our normal programming. Thank you very much.
finance is here to increase profit operation. The report of VAMED, based company, subsidiary of the German global health giant PSI. Contracts with the Kenyan government have added Kenyan including international debt while shifting cash funding away from the public debt. Outside of Europe, VAMED international project business has operated in countries across the global south. In Kenya, VAMED's project focused on upgrading maternity units in county health facilities. Yet interviews with Kenyan county health officials raised significant questions over the stability and quality of the equipment provided. One of the officials that was interviewed said, what they supplied initially did work, brought another did work. We also then suspect the equipment was not as high as we expect. Much of the equipment supplied did not meet expectations and may have been no longer sustainable in the European market. Cost of that equipment have been taken from twin county healthcare budgets without addressing public health needs in local communities. There is no public information, even for county health facilities, on how the equipment supply contracts were negotiated. Another health official said, I can confirm that no one in my county knows the value of the project or how much was spent or any of the particulars. They were just added after the construction of the maternity. In 2019, government company Senior Medical Care predicted long global pattern of slavery and corruption to win government contracts. That is for medical equipment, including in Africa, and paid a settlement of over $231 million to the UN government under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Instead of adding huge sums of cash to fuel the profit for scandal-ridden foreign corporations, instead, our government should be investing in our frontline health workforce and in a functional health service. Projects in Kenya were previously financed by our state government with no apparent disclosure that it is significant shareholder in VAMED. The UK government's export finance bill also provides fair-funded financing to VAMED. That is the UK subsidiary. With a stated goal of increasing VAMED procurement from UK suppliers of healthcare equipment and services. Current VAMED projects in Kenya have been financed by the government of Finland and have involved an exclusive export of products to the tune of $90 million, which was a debt to the Kenyan government. What other Jason Ward said, European government supporting these projects must be kept to account on whether local healthcare objectives are being met, or if they are very focused on increasing exports to the domestic manufacturers. We demand a transparent investigation into who paid for this contract, who profited, and if these public funds are improving health outcomes for the Kenyan people. That is the assessment that we prepare. I just want to recommit that this particular project highlighted the thickness of corruption that exists from the national government when they're pushing for this equipment to the county. Many counties, the county that we did the project in, Baringo County, Makweli County, all indicated, the United County, all indicated whereby the projects were done, but there was no knowledge of the county government on anything or any information regarding this project. And any information regarding it was not there. The equipment was supplied, and some of the workers were taken to Finland to train, but there's no any budgetary information. We just came to realize through the investigation approach that some of these funds are actually set the government is taking, but then there's no value on the operation, and ensuring that actually there's access to healthcare within those particular places where these projects are being undertaken. That's why this report was released. So it's heightened corruption that is happening. It's lack of information. It's a one-sided approach, which counts are not aware of what is happening. They just be pushed. This happening at a time when we are seeing a rally of the government on the universal health. So we are saying it is important that government be able to account for each shilling that Kenya taxpayers pay. It is important for the government to ensure that when we talk about the universal health, the public health facilities are able to function. It is very, very important that when you talk about transition from NHIF to it will not be again a way to just take the money to a few private profiteers, as we are seeing it now. Because we as unions are saying that there is no possibility to have universal health care when we don't invest in the public health, when we don't put governments accountable, when we don't give information on projects that are being undertaken.
Thank you so much. Again, the reports are not things that when you see all these flowery events and all these donor projects, clearly it's not out of the goodness of the butcher that is the meat. There is some hidden agenda behind it. And of course, we have the TS for clinical officers, and we know that the trade union we like talking. I'm sure you can always add something around the current projects that you have done. Then we can end the session. All right. They hate what they are doing. They only hate it when it is about the gender problem. You look at WHO report, most of the countries need the facility, the percentage support. Look at where we don't do gender. Yes. You go to Nairobi, you go to the go to ours, when we see any policy coming out of parliament, this contract under PPP, I think it's good to point out that we have a responsibility. We continue crying that things need to be put openly. As we look here in this report, aspect of further participation was not happening. So that then corruption will break, because when you are informed, so there was no stakeholder participation in this process, and that is where we are asking for accountability. any other business that is going or coming. Yes, there is. So who should be there? They have taken advantage of the healthcare workers because the majority of us wake up early in the morning. You see your patient from morning to the time you are living close to 10 to 8 to 10 hours. It's already too late. You can never know the never get anything that deals with that. That is where they have taken advantage because the majority of us never want to be. Poland government. Why? Even in this process of stuff, the government has been avoiding the union and they have been involving the station. High time, whether 4% down from 15% as the object declaration funds must be shilling to shilling checked and accounted for. That is our call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the two pieces. And thank you to our partners from the corporate state. We all know that democracy dies in darkness. The fact that I get to shine light upon the issues. To receive our assistance. Have the geo network. I know that we have the union for the ticket and the treasury schooner, and we are privileged to have the treasurer with us. I'd like to make a comment, not just around the VAMED report, but around and lately the government has been pushed for preventive for primary healthcare. What do you find around the approach? What would you find? On the matters, when KMPDU like that one, we can leave a tent. When you look at the only tent that gets paid up. We're not talking about the winter of the house. What are we going to happen? So, look at it. How that you have been a branch official. About your experience working in the county, especially from Lema, where we believe that having been put in power, the healthcare system must be perfect from where you return. And then you can see that perfect that we take on, the more corruption and take it to chair away from the people.
One unique experience of coming from central Kenya is politically, when it's convenient for the leaders, you all become part of one group. But then now once that season is over, you go back to your normal status in life. So it's almost like a privilege and a curse that at one point you're envied and at the other hand, you're also being used. But within central Kenya, where I mostly represent doctors from, we have 5 counties, and I'd say they are all at different levels of performance, different levels of service delivery. And you can really see the difference that leadership at that level brings. In fact, you can even see the difference with administrations before the 2022 elections, administrations after the 2022 elections, where if you have someone who's willing to listen, willing to take things seriously, so much changes so fast. And I'll give an example of Murang'a County, and I'll speak openly here. Before the 2022 election, Murang'a County was one of the most problematic counties we had. Workers were rarely being paid on time. Deductions and remittances were not being done. And after the administration changed, in just 1 year, you can see a county raising their own source revenue, the money they collect in the county, from 500 million per year to 1 billion. That's doubling the money you're collecting. And the only thing you've done in 1 year is just digitize money collection. So basically, it's not a new policy you've brought. What you've just done is sealed the loophole. Now, once you are collecting double the money you're collecting, there are so many new things you can do, right? So that's just an example of where you can see leadership at that level matters. The ability of an administration to focus on what issues are important matters. And I'll give an example just to wind up. If a county does not see healthcare as a serious policy agenda for its administration, they simply find it like a nuisance they have to deal with, right? And the saddest thing about healthcare is healthcare by itself is development. When you find a whole county doesn't have an oncologist, what are you telling the people of that county? That if your grandmother or your person gets cancer, they have to travel out of the county to go get healthcare. Yet you find such a person or such a governor very focused on building markets, building a road, doing so many projects, yet delivering healthcare by itself is development. So yeah, the pattern so far 10 years after devolution is different. And the biggest factor, in my opinion, is the leadership quality.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bill. I would have to be how the world developed, especially health was at the center of each other. Because with proper health, everybody will live.
Thank you very much. My question is very long. I've just taken the mic from somebody from Murima. I was almost saying wrong. Very long. And it is good we have identified the problem. If we have not in this room, maybe we need to ask that question. What is the problem? When did the rain start beating us? Is the problem in health funding? Is the problem in health access to health? Because we've had numerous healthcare worker industrial actions. Let me call them industrial actions. Strike also is oversimplification of the matter, where the straw that is making the camel go down was an industrial dispute. Yes, during our industrial dispute, we've been raising issues on healthcare, accessibility, affordability. But if we have identified the problem to be money, my questions come here. Are we when we want to make health a social problem, but also to some extent might be fighting a social answer to the problem? And this is not because, I'm not asking this because I want to support the social health insurance fund, but so that how do we start addressing the health problem? One, on access, and also on our industrial, on our welfare issues. Because as a union, our primary mandate is welfare issue. Number two, if we have identified the problem to be money, whether we decide healthcare is social, whether we decide healthcare is capitalist in nature, and therefore money must follow all the things we are demanding for, what actions are we proposing? This is now to the panel. What actions are we proposing to be taken? Because we can continue identifying the problem,
over the years without necessarily giving the steps to address this problem to the public. What action are we proposing the public to take so that this issue is addressed? Because matters of health are directly affecting the public. What are we inciting them to do, or what information are we giving them? And I like the fact that Cyprian mentioned that we should start tackling this problem from an ideological and a philosophical level. But are we sure that this food we are giving the public, can they digest it and swallow it, first of all? Because we are a very, very politicized country. To an extent, if Onyango wants to bring up something, unfortunately, my friend here, Nico, would disagree. Not because it does not make sense to him, but because it is Onyango who has raised this issue. And my name does not really augur well with common sense. So what incitement are we giving to the public? Is the public giving feedback rightfully, through the right channels, to the right people? Because this is what happens. I come from Moroni, and when people do not get service, the first person they are going to apportion blame to is the healthcare worker who they found in the hospital without an X-ray machine, without fuel in the ambulance, and without drugs in the pharmacy. And they're going to say that this guy is not doing anything. In fact, what information are we feeding the public? And this is a good start. We need to tell them that, one, these things are bogus. Two, we are riddled with corruption. Three, we are just here to man these buildings. We cannot offer you services as per the skills that we acquired in school. Two, to our representation, the MPs. Our MP, unfortunately, you have already been chosen, so you will take the blame. If we are not, yes, if you are not representing, if you are not telling, if my MP in Moroni, who is a farmer and he was voted because he said he's a sugarcane farmer. My parents are sugarcane farmers. I like sweet things. Yes, we expect that, but also these sugarcane farmers have health issues that are affecting
the most important thing.
Yes. If my MP is not addressing the fact that the hospital is not meeting our needs, our hospitals are meeting our needs, and not only hospitals. Remember, in universal healthcare, we said we will begin taking care of our health from the community level. Are we addressing all these issues from that level? Does our MP know that this hospital is supposed to function at a certain level? Recently, you saw Joti Arech was gazetted as a parastatal. I don't know. Those are very bad misnomers to throw around on social media and to the fourth estate. It is not true. What is a parastatal? Should it excite us? It should not excite us at all. That we are trying to change our institutions to be something that usurps money from somewhere so that they function better, and yet we are paying taxes. To policy, what policies are we trying to incite? Again, we have the honorable MP here. What policies are we trying to incite when we have identified the issue is funding? I'm asking this very long question because we have known for a very long time since Lipa Kama Tender that the problem is money. The honorable learned friend here would say that when people go to the hospital, they don't get the care they deserve. But that is where her statement will end. Her statement would not elicit questions of why. Why are they not getting the services that they need? Is it because that mother, when she gets to maternity, I'm using mother because most of us here are consultants of labor.
You heard of that?
So, is it because when the mother reaches labor ward, she does not meet the healthcare worker? Or is it that she does not know that this hospital is going to offer me maternity services? Or is it that in the first place, the decision for her to go to the hospital is not hers? is it that she does not have access, physical access by road to the health facility? And once she gets there, am I going to be trying to do abracadabra? We saw, may the Lord rest his soul in this. There was this guy who used to say Rambo, Bambo, Boom, Boom on TV when we were very small, when we were children. It's called Rodriguez. Is that what healthcare workers are doing in the hospital? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. We are just doing things that we think we improvise. We are not supposed to improvise. You are paying taxes so that these hospitals are well equipped. And finally, to the unions, our core mandate is welfare. Yes, we have also taken up the issue of trying to sort out societal ills. What action are we eliciting from the unions that is going to push the public, the policies, our representatives, to make that change that will make sure the money problem in health is sorted out so that people acquire health services that they need? My DSG, I will differ with you. I don't think devolution is the problem. I think our core problem is money. Money is there. The problem with money is that everybody wants to put it somewhere they think is better than where it is supposed to be. Nikiona pesa ya health imewekwa pale kwa account ya health, nasema that money is better in my pocket. Nikiona pesa imewekwa pale ya linda mama, nasema that money is better if my children can go to Cambridge for kindergarten in the UK. I hope I have not lost our people. Thank you.
But we have time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Money has never been a problem, not even for a single day. What's the problem with money? We don't have a money problem in Kenya at all. We've never had a money problem. This is a political and a moral question that is before us. That's why I said we must place it where it's supposed to be placed. And my sister from PSI actually nailed it when she spoke about one word that we need to get out of this conference with: neoliberalism. We have a neoliberal crisis. We don't have a money problem. We have a neoliberal crisis. That's the problem we have, and that's why I've asked that they project this. All those issues that you see there, the 11 policy issues in healthcare, as I told you, I teach policy, and that is my area. You are looking at health policy governance and the issues, the 11 issues there. The only problem we have there is that we have transited from health as a social good, public good, to the neoliberal crisis of health as a money-making, profiteering opportunity, so that you need to prepare several people to open kiosks and provide nothing but make the money. That is the problem we have. We don't have a money problem. So in my concluding remarks, because people can be able to see that all the issues that we have been speaking about since morning are there, my appeal, in fact, let me start with my gratitude. My gratitude is that doctors and the medical workers in Kenya, health workers in Kenya, have commuted what in political science we call class suicide. That's the fortunate thing with our country, which gives me hope. The doctors have decided, and nurses and the clinical officers have decided to commit class suicide. Instead of fattening their accounts, they have said, we are going to be social and conscious. We are going to tell you what the problem is with healthcare. The next place to go to is for us citizens to build on what you have started, so that we can be able to bring down these institutions. By the way, Tom, Mheshimiwa Odege was very eloquent when he was at that podium. I said, I have not heard that in the ODM manifesto. I have not heard it in parliament. This eloquence, where has it been? You know, the party is in bed with Ruto right now, privatizing medical care. Yeah. But you see, Odege has to worry about 2027 and keep quiet, otherwise it's going to be trouble. So we can't rely on these ones. He's a comrade, but we must also know that he has political interests to take care of. So we must be clear how the solution for this country is going to come. We are going to have to build on what the health workers and practitioners have started, because you've committed class suicide. We have to build on that class suicide so that we mobilize citizens. And that's where some of us come in, TISA, you know, the Future of Kenya Foundation, LNET, and the other institutions that speak for citizens. We now must back you up. We must support what you've put forward, and we must call it a revolution. We must say that healthcare cannot be privatized. It cannot be privatized. And because if you say healthcare is not going to be privatized, you shall solve a lot of these other problems that we are talking about. And that's how we are going to make this a political question for 2027. We must make it a political question. The question will be, where do you stand? Do you stand for healthcare to be privatized, or is it a public good? Is it a fundamental right, or it is a private good which has to be afforded in the market? Let us make it the political question for 2027. And that is how we are going to turn the tide. All MPs will start to speak about it for them to get elected. Presidential candidates will speak about it. On the side, we will provide for you the technical drafters on how to kill SHIF and produce a better NHIF. So all this has to be done concertedly. Our progressive MPs, the healthcare professionals, the policy think tanks, and the citizens of Kenya united to make sure that healthcare is not private, but is actually a public good, which is a fundamental right in the Constitution of Kenya.
Thank you very much. Really good answer. And
I think we need more of Morara Kebaso from the doctors. We need more boldness, not as a union, but individual doctors who will be able to see things in hospitals and say, hey, there's a problem here. We need doctors to be whistleblowers so that we can then come in and join you in solidarity. Because I think solidarity is the only one thing that remains in this country that will help us salvage our situation as citizens and as shareholders in this company. Yeah, so we need people to digest Okay, make it simple for people to share on social media. We know you're doctors and you're very intelligent and you know, consultants in labor and everything, but make that estrogen, make the lay person understand what estrogen is, right? So that then we can speak the same language and we can go, whether it is to the streets, whether it is to the offices, whether it is whichever platform we'll get to, you know, advocate for better healthcare. So yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. George, as you give your closing remarks now, in your analysis track and interaction with the counties and the moment, where did you find the problem to be and how?
First, let me say, I talked about the two levels of governance that we have, and always it comes out very clearly when you're talking about funds. We have issues of which are eminent issues facing the healthcare workers who are employed or rather employed during the COVID time, close to 10,000 workers. And these people were brought because our system was not able to function by that time. It was already stretched. So we brought them because we realized that the ones that we have, they are not enough. After serving their first period of 3 years, there was the issues we were pushing that they be confirmed to permanent and pensionable because then that was the promise. Now, a majority of them are under county, and the county will tell you we don't have funds. Ask the national government. The national government will say they are under the county. I have seen that during our strike, actually, we realized those are some of the issues we were pushing. You'll find a body like the Intergovernmental Coordination Summit making a decision about health, where no healthcare workers were seated there to actually contribute in terms of what is happening. The people I'm talking about, the UHC staff, a majority of them are now health centers, in charge of those health centers. They are actually, whatever, they are holding, they are the people who are transacting on behalf of the government. Yeah. By the way they are paid, is peanut. Now, when you talk about money being a problem, for me, I feel that the reality is that our governance system, our leadership, is a problem. Anywhere, once you break the health system is supposed to be a system that thinks from the central, and now they classify the services, be able to ensure that the services be able to. Every time that it looks good to the county, they want to distance themselves from what the national government is doing. But whenever they're benefiting, they stand with the national government. Whenever they want to divide healthcare workers and they misuse them. I want to give a good example of what is happening in Kisii. Kisii have come up with an act, county government, that's a specific county. And now they have separated the referral facility from the other system. They are now chasing the other healthcare workers who are on permanent and pensionable without conformity to the law. And now they're employing people, paying them peanuts so that they will never go on strike. And the person who is doing that was a former legislator, an MP. Because he wants to cover people that you can never go on strike, you cannot practice. And I wonder whether then he eliminated the aspect of being an employee. So, and indeed that's what now they are doing. But at the end of it, we are killing the system. I want to take us back to the Auditor General's report in the health system. It pointed out to a glaring issues of a majority of the healthcare facilities never submit, they never do any audit. And the corruption that is happening there. Did anyone take action, including starting from the Parliament and the Senate? Did anyone take action to ensure that then we push them to accountability? None. None. So what is there, and looking at where the eminent, where we are going currently with the new laws, the FIF, every facility is going to do their own. But who will be running those? Who will be directing where the resources will be used? It's still the county government. You're under them. They will actually decide who to become the CEO of that facility. They will decide who to be in charge of that facility, where there is fund, and then they will send their relatives to come and do the entrepreneuring process there, or employ their own cronies who are
correct politically. So for me, I'm saying the challenges we have seen during the COVID time, we realize that we have a constitution over 10 years now. We need to do a total audit of the health sector. We consider issues that have not worked under the county, and or rather the current system that we have. And then he say, can we agree that we need to correct? We cry of the corruption under the Ministry of Health, but what is happening under the county is even more damning. Then how do we correct it? If you have 48 avenue of stealing, the little resources we have, as we talked about, 4.7% of the national resources, the little money that we have. So bad governance. Yes, CHA is coming with what we call digital health, digital whatever, superhighway. But the system is as good as the person who operates it. So that system and the system that we are saying it's not working is because of the bad governance, bad leadership, and the bad manners of our people. Every time they are there, it's about themselves and the people who they know. If today I know someone, at least I'll get something from KEMSA. That is the fact. Now, until the system starts working, then we can't realize the UHC because, you know, we have launched it for the 4th time. We are going for the 5th time, and then nothing you can point to be a positive or a development in the health sector. Uhuru launched it 3 times. Now this is, we are approaching the time that this new government launched it, but nothing positive. So as healthcare workers, I know we have a responsibility. As much as we put it outside there, I think we have a responsibility. And indeed, I agree with Dr. that when we communicate to the public, do they understand us? During the, during the campaign time, I was seated with Kinandi because we were working with him. And then we were raising the issue because our main agenda of participation was to raise the issues of health to be among the political agenda during that time. So then he told us that why do you think that issues of teachers can be listened to more than healthcare workers? And yet the issues of health is about life and death. He said, you healthcare workers think that everyone understands you. But majority of people do not understand it because once I get sick, when I see you, I forget you. I get out of you. But I have longer time with the teachers if my child is in that school. And even it's a problem when the school are closed. You understand? So a majority of when you close the facility, very few families have, in the whole of the village, maybe one of them or 3 have patients in that hospital. So a majority are not concerned. So packaging of our information is also one key issue that we need to learn. Because looking at it, if even our own members do not understand us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those getting ideas. I know the sacrifice that you made to be here. I want you to sum up the take-home message. Now that we sit there.
Thank you very much. Kind of caught off guard, but that's okay. So I'm not a doctor like all of you. I'm actually a lawyer, and I advise governments on domestic revenue mobilization. I think it is, yeah. Yes, I advise governments, not just the Kenyan government, on domestic revenue mobilization. So this is more about the social contract. How do we get our taxes to be redistributed towards public goods such as health and education? And what has really angered me in terms of reading this report is what all of you have discussed, but importantly, the issue of complicity between governments. The fact that you have a foreign government that's a shareholder of this very institution that is procuring this health equipment for the country, which is dilapidated and not working, goes on to explain the neoliberal, the neo-colonial aspects that you're sharing, these historical inequalities and the historical injustices where, you know, Kenya and other developing countries have always and continue to be seen as entities where resources can be extracted for the global north has now come full force in what we're seeing in the health economy. The fact that we already have illicit financial flows as a huge problem for the African continent, about 89 billion US dollars is lost annually from Africa. This doesn't account for corruption. Kenya only, we are losing 40 billion Kenya shillings annually because of corporate tax evasion. So when you have entities that come and provide us with dilapidated health equipment, whose future is it impacting? The fact that our government needs revenue sources, it needs the human, you and I, to be able to be physically healthy, to be able to work. If we're sick and we cannot work, we can't raise these taxes. So it's the poverty in the country that becomes more languished. So for me, the issue here is accountability, and I've heard the term mentioned so many times, including good governance from what Honorable was discussing as well. Accountability is not only between the national government and the county government at this point, but it's also accountability at the international level, because that's where the problems are. Our governments would not be able to get away with this if the international society and the international community was not complicit in allowing for such dilapidated equipment being brought to our countries at our own expense. So for me, it's an abuse of Article 43 of our Constitution, which guarantees us with the highest attainable standard of health. It is an abuse of Article 10, where the principles of what Kenya's Constitution is founded on in terms of sustainable development, good governance, accountability, as well as Article 209 that speaks about public resources must be used for the betterment of our communities, is being violently, and openly abused. So I think this report is really crucial, because what we really feel problematic in the legal field is like we never get this data. And this is excellent data. It may not have the numbers, but it gives us the value chains, the production chains, and the stakeholders, as well as the enablers who are responsible for the continuity of these corrupt practices. So I think we will now be able to really hold governments super accountable, because now we have data to go by. At the same time, we can hold the international community accountable under SDG 3, which they're saying that we're all failing on because we don't have enough revenue sources. Again, I heard we do have enough money in the country. There's sufficient money in the country if it wasn't for corruption, like it has been pointed out by our honorable MP. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lady. So I think my work is we have enough for all our needs, not our greed.
Not their greed.
Not their greed. Two, the biggest challenge in Africa is about leadership and governance. We fix that, and all the other things coming. So let me call our chairman for Central Bank to give the vote of thanks. Then after that, we'll go have lunch, and then we can take over. Thank you. I think my panel for
Thank you very much, Dr. Michela. I've been given this opportunity just to appreciate all of us. And as I appreciate all of us, first and foremost is to make all of us feel that we are here for the right cause. Because for one, we are now talking about our nation. Probably we were not there when we were supposed to be there, because when the revolution was taking place, we were not there. And I don't know whether it was deliberate or it was we assumed that everybody else will think about the nation the way we think about it. Today, if you remember what you have read, because I know most of us were not there when Kenya got independence, we had 3 issues that we had to tackle. One of them was poverty, and you can see treasury is still intact. Nobody is touching it. It was not devolved, isn't it? The other one was ignorance. Minister of Education was not devolved, isn't it? What was the third one? Diseases. So our diseases are the only ones that got devolved. And where are they devolved? I'm a chairman of a region where we have 2 level 5s just partitioned by 5 kilometers and a river in between. So what is that? What is it telling us? Money, we are asking our question is, where is the money? Where is the money? And we have concluded that money is everywhere, with everybody. And you can ask yourself, if you ask every Kenyan to give you just 1 shilling, how much money you get by the end of the day? How much? So all we want to know is that money is scattered in the country, but it's getting to the wrong pocket. Yes, we elected people to go there and make decisions. Help us come up with the policies. Have a ministry that will come up with the policies, which will be able to tell us how to utilize money so that people can stop being poor, so that we can improve our education, so that we can improve on our health. So I'm hoping that from this meeting, what will come out and what we need to speak to the nation is that there's need for us to set the money well, especially on training on manpower. We should stop sending our people to India. And even if you're stopping sending our people to India, we should also stop importing things from India when we can be able to make them locally. We should stop having machines coming from India that we have not asked for them, or from Germany or any other country, when we have not asked for them. And if they must come, they will come because we need them, because we have asked for them, and because we are properly trained on them. Having said that, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of us who found the time to be here. I know there must have been a lot of competing interests, but all these organizations can stay here. I do not, some of them I do not even really know what they are called. But the good thing is that we have one thing in common. We want Kenyans to have better health. We want our resources to be used well, and we do not want to have wastage. Guest of honor, thank you very much for honoring the event, and even for talking to the nation differently from the way you talk in the political forum. Yeah, we are proud of you. We hope that when you get to the parliament, you do exactly the same and tell them that you want them to stop involving health. Of course, we know as KMPDU, we know there's something that you have done that may make them change their mind. And time will tell, because we're just about to get it started. Having said that, I want to thank each and every one of you and invite you for lunch, because we are told that lunch is there. And as you go home, or we go to meet the other people you are with, please tell them that we appreciate their role, and they should always think and talk to their people about why we made a mistake of developing health. Asanteni.
Yeah, let's all rise and clap.